In this video, I'll go over taxi, takeoff, and landing for the BF-109. The first thing you can do is click your gun sight here to get it out of the way so it's a little bit easier to see. Okay, so when you taxi, you want to come here to this lever and you want to make sure it's up. You can see that up says loose. That means that our tail wheel can spin so we can turn. So you're going to move your throttle a little bit forward to start rolling, and you can use your brakes to stop yourself, and you can use the left and right toe pedals to turn. So if I want to turn right, I'm just going to press my right pedal and then I can start turning like that. One thing to note is that obviously it's kind of hard to see out the front window, so you might want to do a zigzag pattern while you taxi so you can see what's in front of you. Okay, now for takeoff. First you go back to the lever and you put it down so the tail wheel locks. You want the tail wheel to be locked when you take off, or you could roll around and flip over. Okay, now we can close the canopy. You click this handle up here and then it closes. Okay, now we can adjust our flaps. You adjust your flaps using the outer lever here. You pull it back to lower it and forward to raise them. There's no gauge for the flaps, so you just have to look outside the wing and you can see these angles here. You don't need flaps to take off, but if you're on a really short runway and you want to do a short takeoff, or if you're just really heavily loaded, maybe you've got a bomb and full fuel or something, then you can lower the flaps. I'm just going to lower them a little bit. Okay, so next you're going to see this black switch right here. You want this switch to be up. You don't want it to be down, because if you put it down, it puts the angle of the blades in automatic mode. But we do not want them to be in automatic mode. We want them to be in manual while we're taking off, because we want the blades to have the least angle as possible. Also, make sure that this gauge right here says 1230. This is the angle of the blades. And 1230 is when the blades are at their least angle. If it doesn't say 1230, you can use this switch on the throttle and you can just move it until the gauge says 1230. Now keep in mind, once you take off, you can put this in automatic mode, but just for taking off and landing, we want to have it on manual and 1230 here. Okay, so taking off is pretty simple. You just keep pushing the throttle forward until you're going pretty fast, and whenever you push the throttle forward, you're going to see that this gauge here is going to climb up. This one is the pressure in the engine. You don't want it to go past 1.35. That is the max for takeoff. Now, whenever you're going down the runway, the plane is going to want to turn. And in the beginning, the rudder is not going to be very effective. You're going to have to press on your brake a little bit to make sure the plane stays on track. But once you're going pretty fast, you won't need to use your brakes anymore and you can just use the rudder. Then, once you're going pretty fast, the aircraft will basically lift off by itself. You'll just kind of get the feel of it and know what to do. Alright, so let's take off. I'm going to bring my throttle forward. And you see, I'm just pressing a little bit on my right pedal so I stay in line. So I bring the throttle to 1.35, and now I'm going to start using my rudders. And you can see I just moved the stick a little bit back, and the plane basically took off itself. Now all we need to do is you can open this and you can click that up to raise the landing gear, and you can raise your flaps up. And once you've taken off, you can also bring back your throttle a little bit. One thing to keep in mind is this plane likes to lift a lot, so once you take off, you're going to want to trim down a little bit so you don't stall. You can trim using this inner wheel here. So you can see I trimmed the plane down a little bit so it doesn't keep trying to go up. Okay, so now for landing. For landing, first you need to check your speed and make sure you're under 350 kilometers per hour. Then you can click this button to lower your landing gear. Then you need to lower your flaps. You have to be under 250 kilometers per hour to lower your flaps. You can see I'm at 250, so I'm going to go ahead and lower my flaps. I'm just going to lower them all the way. Now the last thing to check for landing is to come back and make sure this switch is up in manual mode. And then you want to again use this switch on your throttle to adjust the angle of the blades so the gauge says 1230. Once again, for takeoff and landing, you want the blades to be at the lowest angle, which is 1230 on this clock gauge. So for landing this plane, and with most of the World War II planes, it's really just kind of landing by feeling it. Eventually you just kind of figure out how to do it. My best tip for you is to make sure you're not going too fast, because with these World War II planes, the DCS, if you're going too fast when you touch down, it's really easy to start bouncing, and that is when you crash. you should almost kind of like stall onto the runway when you touch down. With that being said, you don't really want to slow down too much until you're on your final course for touchdown, because if you're going too slow while you're in a turn, you could stall the plane, so be careful with that. Also, make sure your tail wheel lever is down so it's locked. You don't want it to be unlocked when you're landing. Okay, unfortunately on that landing I slowed down too much, and you can see it ended kind of in a disaster. But you get the point. You just have to do it a couple times and you'll understand the feeling. The other thing I just want to note really quick is that when you're landing, make sure you're not doing super drastic movements with the throttle, because the sudden change on the torque from the engine can make your plane flip and your wing could hit the runway. So make sure you do smooth throttle movements. Thanks for checking out this video, and I'll see you later.